second by Margaret. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 2.1, recommend approval of payroll certification. May I have a motion?
Nick moved it. I can see him say that.
Nick, your mic's not on. All right.
I'll
Nick
move
moved
it.
Second by
Me.
Second.
Margaret. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 3.1, President's Report. Dr. Drum, give us the good, the bad, and the ugly.
I'll start in that order, Anthony. Well, depending on how you view it. This is your last meeting as chair of FNF. Of course, depending on how the vote goes Thursday night, but as presented by the nominating committee. Sorry you're not here to do this in person, and we'll have something similar for Mark on Thursday night, and then we'll have to pop them in the mail, or I'll play courier. The president of SUNY Broome Community College, on behalf of faculty, staff, students, and fellow trustees of the college. Thank you, Anthony Panicia, for your leadership and dedication as chairman of the Finance and Facilities Committee for the Board of Trustees from October 2017 to September 2020.
Thank you.
Your timing is impeccable, Anthony. I don't think any college or university will have had a more challenging financial year than the one we're facing. I don't know what that says about Kathy moving in as chair of finance, but
well, I can say my job was made easy due to Michael. I think I've gave him accolades probably half a dozen to a dozen times over the last 2 years, but he has done a tremendous job as the CFO of the campus, and my hat's off to all his efforts.
We are indeed fortunate to have him, and most of the news currently, although most critically, Michael will give us or Len will give us the details about regarding the separation incentive, and and that's a bittersweet thing. We always have retirements every year, but looks like when all is said and done and the deadlines pass, we'll be pretty close to 50 people who will have taken the separation incentive. That's a sad thing for the college. On the one hand, to lose all those really good people, so that's clearly the most critical impact that we're facing for the coming years as we right size for the environment and the double impact of our demographic tsunami that we've been facing, or the birth dearth, as people refer to it across the country, and layering on the pandemic and competition from the mega distance universities and all that. So we will miss all of them, very much. Some of them I know quite well. Others, not as well. And it's sad not to see them around day to day as it is, with as few staff and faculty as we have on campus day to day anyway. And some we'll never see again, and that's unfortunate for the college and for our students. But part of the reality and part of a major strategic effort to work to avoid any layoffs or retrenchments over these next couple of years. As we speak, our sister institutions are involved in layoffs right now, and so far we've been able to avoid that. Certainly in no small part of that due to Michael's financial acumen and helping us manage the budget the way he does, but everybody. It's a team effort, and nothing has taken more of a team effort than this current environment. So I want to thank everybody for help keeping our nose above water, which is where we are, and that's the way it's going to be. We're going to be treading financially and just trying to keep our nose above water for probably at least the next 2 years. As the state's not going to be in a whole lot better situation with everything going on in the city and the amount of economic energy the city pumps into the entire state. That's not going to be back to normal anytime soon. So all the above, it's really been Herculean and Wonder Woman effort across the board to keep us with our nose above water through this, and hopefully we'll be able to do that. I'm sure you've seen a couple of my messages regarding CARES Act funding and the budget itself. Just by my rough calculations, it's about $6.5 million we're looking for this year, one way or another. We've got about 2.3 of that on the institutional side of the CARES Act. So that's a minimum of about $4.5 million. We've got to find one way or another with all of the expenses. And then we learned last week, as you know, the TAP, Excelsior, EOP, and one other area I can't remember right now of student aid are at risk for a certain portion of our students. It appears not all students. It looks like incoming students would be impacted primarily with those cuts, but we've not had any specific information from Albany on what cuts we're going to take, other than the quarterly payment we didn't receive, or most of the quarterly payment we didn't receive in the last quarter, and the $750,000 that the state cut us to begin this fiscal year. Those are the only numbers we know. That the quarterly cut was a cash flow cut. It was not supposedly a permanent cut. So all of this is based on what SUNY can share with us, based on what they're hearing from DOB. When we finally get the numbers, we'll know. Now, hopefully, with the Student Emergency Fund, that which we're prepared to crank up, further fundraising with the Student Emergency Fund. We'll be talking with Kathy about that later this morning, or actually this afternoon. I've got to be on a Middle States call here this morning with Penny. And that, of course, that whole layer of activity is with us for this entire year, pretty much until the visit in the spring as well, layered as a normal aspect of our operating this year. So hopefully, with the remaining CARES Act funding for students and the Student Emergency Fund, particularly for our most financially needy students, we hope to be able to make some, if not all, of those cuts up. And then we'll go from there once we see the numbers. So that's the good news, is we're trying to, with the pots that we have, the emergency pots that we have, to keep us in a position to be able to make that up for our neediest students, if not everyone who loses out, if we can. That's going to be the top priority going forward for those students, because our neediest students financially will be disproportionately impacted by the cuts. If it's a 20% cut, as we're hearing, 20% of a small amount of money is a much bigger bite for family finances than 20% of a big income. So that'll be our priority for this year, and trying to keep money set aside for our students, as well as to continue to try to avoid layoffs and retrenchments, and then in that context do the absolute best job we can in the classroom and with our student and academic support services. And that's what you'll hear pretty much all year, and except for surprises like last week when we heard about the potential financial aid cuts. We've been asking, what could happen to the state financial aid pots, and we didn't get any answers until last week. So whether we'll have more surprises through this next year or so, I would say yes, depend on what they are. And now we're doing pooled testing is the other big nut that we're cracking here on a regular basis. We're waiting to hear the results back from the lab at Upstate for the 84, 85 tests we did. And then we'll continue that beginning next week. And those are the big news items, Mr. Chair, unless there are any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Drum. Any questions from our members?
No. Depressing.
Okay. Michael, Budget and Finance, if you can address items all under 3.2.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have, again, the monthly forecast for last year's budget that ended August 31st. Budget and Finance Office continues to forecast a balanced budget for last year. We'll spend the next 6 weeks until the end of October preparing the annual report that has to be submitted to SUNY. And then Bonadeo, our external audit firm, will come in and actually review the audited financial statements, which I anticipate will be presented to the board in January of 2021. So still have a lot to do with finalizing all of the accruals and all of the numbers. We'll also be back to the board in October for the write-offs and bad debt amounts. And so I think tentatively we're pretty pleased given the volatility of this past year and some challenges with the enrollment side of the budget, that we were fortunate with, again, the entire team effort to maintain a balanced budget for last year. The second item in the agenda, I think the college is very pleased. SUNY, on an annual basis, has a number of metrics and financial metrics and ratios that it uses, which are very consistent with how the feds review financial strengths and sustainability of colleges, and specifically community colleges. So we were just notified last week that for the second year in a row, we achieved the highest the highest rating as financially responsible. I think there's a 4-page handout in your report, 3.2.2, that just explains the various metrics, how they're weighted, and also included how we compare to the rest of our peers. But I think this bodes well for the Middle States review, and assuming we have a balanced budget for last year, that'll be our 4th year in a row. We'll have a balanced budget, and that was our major objective in the Middle States in the financial category of ensuring balanced and sustainable budgets. And our other major goal and objective was to try to get unrestricted fund balance to about 10%, which is kind of in the middle of the 5 to 15% range. And last year's monthly forecast, even if all we do is break even and have no further contribution to fund balance, we'll be at about 9.7% of operating expenses. So I think we're pretty close to what our goals were for both for the college as well as in response to Middle States. So I just really commend the leadership team, executive council, and really all the employees who had to spend less and try to optimize enrollment during this really challenging time. And finally, the CARES Act, I just thought, the board and the Finance Committee approved the appropriations for the CARES Act several months ago. And I just included a summary, really, of the overview of the program, the federal guidelines for each of the categories, which primarily is the student pot and the institutional pot. And then also included year to date what we've spent in both of those major categories. And again, on the student side, we've we've spent about 68% of the 2.2 ballpark 2.2 million. So there's about 32% remaining, which, you know, we plan to allocate during the fall term, and students are eligible up through kind of the middle of March of next year. So almost a little over 2/3 has been awarded, and we have about 1/3 remaining for the remaining months. On the institutional side, at the current time, we've only requested reimbursement for a little over 11, just under 12%. This is primarily in the area of student refunds for room and board for the time period between the middle of March and the end of the spring 2020 semester. Based on the eligibility criteria, the college has determined that there's about $5 million of eligible expenses that were incurred by the college during last year, 2019, 2020, from that mid-March period to the end of August. There's about $5 million of eligible expense. So the college anticipates submitting for reimbursement of a portion of all those expenditures over the next couple of weeks, and therefore will utilize all of the institutional funds over the next several weeks and apply that to those grant funds to the 2019-2020 fiscal year that just ended a couple of weeks ago. And just finally, a couple of other items, just piggybacking on Dr. Drum's comment about the voluntary separation incentive program. We did get just under 50 eligible employees who did submit their irrevocable letter of separation. We also, there were 2 or 3 other employees who retired during the summer period who did not apply or were not eligible. So we definitely had about 50 FTEs. The total salary is a little over $3 million for that cohort that was eligible and was approved for the program. As you know, the board approved a 50% incentive. So that was, 50% of $3 million is $1.5 million. We're kind of working through all the numbers. The incentive won't be paid out until the end of October, primarily because the college is in a better cash flow position once we receive all the tuition payments and TAP payments are processed. So I think from a financial perspective only, it was a very successful program. The college's goal is to maintain as many of those positions vacant in light of the fact that the budget for this year anticipates about 60 positions won't be filled either through the incentive program or other retirements or other resignations. And that's both a combination of full-time as well as part-time. There's been a significant review of the part-time positions in light of the top priority was to try to avoid a reduction in workforce, especially on the full-time side. So I'll provide a more comprehensive analysis of the current year's budget at next month's board meeting as we kind of get better numbers for the enrollment for the fall, especially the concurrent enrollment side. and we'll have a much better idea of what costs for the voluntary incentive program will get allocated to last year's budget and how much to this year's budget. And we may or may not have a better idea as to what's happening with the most likely reduction of 20% in state aid reduction that we're anticipating. That concludes my report for this month, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions from the board? None being heard. Michael, I want to thank you for your professionalism and getting us fiscally whole. I know I can be tough at times and I've been tough on you, but I appreciate your professionalism and it's been a pleasure working with you. 3.31 facilities, Dave.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. You have my report in front of you. We continue to make a very good progress on a number of improvements and renovations across the campus, mainly being done by our facility staff. One of the ongoing efforts is to create more exterior student space across campus, which we are in the process of evaluating and hopefully accomplishing within the next month or so. In particular, we're looking at space outside the library to create some exterior space, perhaps near the Natural Science Center and other locations. Work continues on the music renovation over in the Campus Services Building. And I hope that within the next couple of weeks, we will have the copy center fully relocated and functional again, and that space, the performance space that we're creating for the music department will become usable. Dr. Drum alluded to the pool testing that started last week here. In addition to that pool testing, SUNY is going to look to us to perhaps do some wastewater testing as well from a COVID standpoint. So we are currently evaluating, number one, how to get that done. Number two, the best locations to get that done in. And number three, is the equipment available? Auto samplers are tough to come by now because every SUNY school has to do this wastewater testing. But I think we're going to be able to pool test 1 week and then wastewater sample the next. So it'll be a bi-weekly effort, and we'll make sure we hit the key buildings where the majority of the students are student activity is taking place. Aside from that, the last paragraph on my report, you see we're looking at 3 additional projects that we're evaluating and securing design funds for. And that's the expansion or creation of a wellness and health center in the old science building, the replacement of the library roof, and the relocation and expansion of the photography lab in the old science building as well. So we've got a lot of work going on. My thanks to my staff. As I said, they've been very busy. I know that the people getting the work done would like it to get done a little bit quicker, but we're doing the best we can. I think I'm very pleased with some of the improvements that we've been able to put in place, and I look forward. We still look forward to this upcoming year and continuing a lot of the renovation and repair work that we've started. So that is my report. I would be more than happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Dave?
I'm curious what the wastewater testing encompasses. What do you do?
Well, what you have to do, Barb, is we have to. So there's 2 different types of sewer: sanitary sewer and a storm sewer. So every building's got a sanitary sewer, basically, that comes out of it, and that's all the wastewater. So we have to collect that wastewater, send it to a lab. It's tested for the presence of COVID, and then they let us know one way or the other if we're clean or we're not. So it's just another mechanism that SUNY feels is appropriate as far as tracking and controlling or containing the spread of the COVID virus.
Yeah, it would be particularly helpful for residence halls, obviously. So much bigger impact, for the other campuses if you can test the effluents from a specific residence hall. But then you got to figure out, okay, somebody in there has got it, and then you got to go figure out who's got it. That's the other side of it. Even just last night, there was an epidemiologist on the national news, and they've been saying all along, it detects the virus a week before either the mucus or the saliva test detects it. So it's very effective that way. You get much earlier notice that somebody's got it, but then you got to figure out who's got it.
Yeah.
Right. You're correct. Then you would have to go in and fully test that building. But Dr. Drum is correct. One of the sites would be the dorms. That would be one of the sanitary sewers that we test. But yeah, Barb, it's just another mechanism or another means of being able to catch it early, as Dr. Drum had said.
I think that's Margaret.
Oh, I thought that was
Okay.
Barb.
That's Margaret.
Well, we all look the same, you know, the
I
girls.
can see Margaret, but I can detect the voice.
Any other questions? Dave, on behalf of the board, want to thank you for all your efforts. There has been considerable improvements to the campus since you joined, and we commend you for your efforts. Thank you. Human Resources Report. I don't know if Lynn's on. Yes, she is. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. My report reflects normal activity for this time of the year. We do have some additional reflections under the termination column. Shows our exiting teaching and some of our non-teaching faculty that have taken the incentive. But otherwise, it's just normal activity. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Michael, 3.3.3 through 3.3.5. I am assuming it's just as in the report.
Yes, all standard reports.
Okay. Any other questions, or can I have a motion to adjourn?
Well, hang on, Anthony, just a couple, and to end on a couple of high notes. The financial news is really good going into Middle States, because that's always the number one thing they look at. They figure you can't do much else well if you don't have the finances to support it. So that's always a key area. So it's really good news as we move into our Middle States visit in the spring. And the initial pool test came back entirely negative.
Great
We
to
just
hear.
got the news. We just got the news in the middle of this meeting. So
Oh, no swimmers have coronavirus. Coronavirus.
right now, no. Well, nobody tested, and it was almost half the resident students. So we're a good start. So thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Margaret.
I'll
Second by
second.
Nick. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Everybody have a great day and a great week. See you on Thursday.
Thank you. You too. See you Thursday.
Bye.
Diana?